Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. I love talking to people who are behind the scenes building very cool brands. And today's guest is building her own brand alongside creating a platform that supports the growth of many other brands, which is so cool. Emily Steele is here. She's the CEO and co founder of Hummingbirds. And I have to say, being behind the scenes, one of my clients is starting to use the platform, and I've been so impressed with Emily and her team. So, Emily, I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being available. I would love to kick things off with your story, your personal career, but also the story, the origin story of Hummingbirds, because I know a latte played a big role in it, and anything that involves coffee, like I'm in. But I want to hear about your career and then the origin story of Hummingbirds.
Yeah, so I'm kind of your typical like marketing PR girl. That's what I went to college for. And I always knew I wanted to use communications to make an impact. I was like, I don't really know what that looks like, but I know I want to use marketing in a way that supports things I care about. And so I ended up doing a lot of different things in my 20s, which is probably very typical of most 20 somethings. But I did
Same.
a mix in like, yeah, I did some community development and worked in like kind of very specific neighborhood revitalization projects in Des Moines, Iowa, where I'm from. I worked for a marketing agency to really understand kind of the online marketing space. It was like when Facebook ads were absolutely just like you'd put $1 in, you get like 20 out. That world was
Ah,
existing and growing.
the good
Uh,
old days. Yep.
I know, I know. And then I ended up I started spinning up some little side projects like a pop-up yoga brand in Des Moines when, no one was really doing yoga in the community. It was very much like you'd go to a studio. I was like, how do you make yoga more experiential? How do you bring it to wineries and breweries? And like the things that are now so mainstream were just like very, very new to people. And I had like a really lovely experience scaling a women's networking group in Des Moines and growing that to hundreds of members and building kind of like the fastest growing chapter in the country. People are like, how are you doing this? Like, what is your secret sauce? Like, how are you building these brands so quickly? Even back in the days where I was working in neighborhood revitalization, I was raising millions of dollars to do projects in these neighborhoods to help better, like whether it was school programs or safety or just like community connectedness. And I'm like, I am totally a community builder through and through. And I do a lot of my community building through content. And I didn't even fully know or appreciate it until, a lot of people in the community were like, can you do this for me? And I was trying to understand what this, quote unquote, this was. And I sat back and was like, okay, I love building community. I'm really good at this. And I love using social media to amplify the things I care about. And I end up starting up a local marketing agency. And this is really when I had my aha moment. So this is the latte story. There's a new coffee shop in town that opened, and they brought oat milk to Iowa. And like honestly, like y'all have probably been having oat milk for a long time, but us Iowans, like we're introduced to oat milk, in 2018. So I'm trying this latte and I'm loving it and I'm sharing it on Instagram. And I see all my friends are like, oh my gosh, like what is this? I've never heard of this. What is this coffee shop? I've never heard of it. Like what you typically see in DMs and the types of
Right.
conversations we're all having all the time that no one can see. And so I see dozens of these people in my network go to this coffee shop and then share them, tag them, and I just watch this happen because in Des Moines, it's such a connected city. The people I follow each other. And so we're all just influencing each other on what to do and try in our own city. And as I'm spinning up this marketing agency, I'm helping my customers, my clients, really think about a very specific geo play on driving behavior, whether it's like booking appointments for their spa or moving product velocity or getting awareness at a farmer's market or music festival. Like, I was trying to bring kind of this new, fresh approach that other agencies in town just were never going to offer, right? Most agencies are like,
Right.
here's your SEO, here's your, like, here's a paid ad strategy. I'm like, I'm going to bring the human to your brand and help you connect with real people who can become your customers and your raving fans. I had at one point like a program, I called it the come back again method. Like, I wanted to teach people how to keep and like create and keep their customer base So I think there's
Yes.
so much around like getting new customers, acquisition, but I'm like, why don't you just delight the ones you have so they become your referral channel and then come back as repeat customers? To me, I'm like, let's go, let's do it, let's figure it out. So, long story
Yes.
short, I have this latte. I'm like, this is the future. Influencer marketing is going to be huge. And it was already like on the rise in 2018, 2019 when I was spinning up this agency. But I was like, influencers will never do a great job at driving local behavior because you don't become an influencer and, build a career based on your network in one city. That's just not
Right.
usually possible. I think there are a handful of people doing it, but I think that's like not the normal path. And so I was like, I'm going to set out to build a community of people who love social. They're posting on the Instagram just because it's, a very millennial Gen Z thing to do. And I'm going to see if they'll try these brands, share it on Instagram, and see if we can move the needle, even though they have maybe like 1,000, 2,000 followers. But because these individuals are so connected, they're so trusted, these are actually the people they do like sand volleyball with and bump into on a bike ride on the trail. Like these people are like, no, I really trust your opinions and like what you recommend. And so we just started seeing a ton of success in Des Moines. And, I'd always wanted this to be like a really big thing, but it just was something to me that I was like, I really want to de-risk and like prove this out before I go raise capital and turn this into like a national brand. So it was about 2022 that I had met my co-founder, Charisse, who has, been there, done that in scaling a tech startup. And she joined me as co-founder, COO, and we raised our first pre-seed at the end of the year, scaled to about 10 cities. And
Amazing.
yeah, we really started getting a lot of success and we really opened, I would say we unlocked the CPG vertical with the more cities we got into because as you know, CPG brands need to drive retail velocity. We are in
Yes.
15 to 20 cities. And that's been an industry we've been really, really excited to support, especially those emerging brands that our creators get so excited about?
Absolutely. A few things that you touched upon. One, I just love your story.
Oh,
That's
thank
just number
you.
one. Number two, when you said met your co-founder who had the experience
Yep.
of raising and building a tech company, what was something or a few things that when you went out to raise that people really like their ears perked up and they're like, wait, this is
Mhm.
different? Because I feel like so many people are almost burnt out of like the cool new thing in tech and social. Like there's just,
Yeah.
I think we also got inundated with different
Yeah.
platforms.
Hmm.
Truly, this is different. And
Hmm.
so I would love to hear what was the thing or a few things that investors were most excited about or intrigued by.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, I didn't realize how important your team composition is and was in those early days of raising. Like they really want to see like, they look at dozens of deals a week. So they're like,
Right.
hey, are these the founders who can get the job done and scale the company? And how can how can we build as much confidence that we're the right team, just regardless of the product and the vision? Okay, so then once you have that, then I really think for us it was about, we acknowledge like we're in the kind of influencer space. There's been hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars invested in a lot of these influencer platforms that have not had an exit, have not gone public. There have not been positive outcomes yet. But we're
Right.
not that. Like we kind of angle around like we're a community-led growth platform. Like we really look at like real people, word of mouth marketing, and the users on our platform won't be joining influencer platforms, and influencer platforms won't be recruiting these people. They're just like different enough in a persona standpoint that we really don't compete. Like we think we run in parallel. Like if you're a big brand, yeah, have an influencer strategy, but have like a local creator, like boots on the ground strategy too. So we think we're really complementary. But I would say that was like a huge early days, right? Like we had a little bit of revenue running out of my agency, but I would say practically pre-revenue, really setting the stage and just saying like, what we know too is like $162 billion is spent on local advertising. And really none of it is like capturing the millennial woman who's the most powerful consumer today. So it's
Right.
just kind of like, here's the lay of the land. It's not working. We've got something that we have conviction can work and we can do it at scale. So
Yes.
that's what we did. And it's been working.
Again, this is why I was so excited to have you on because I've been
Yeah.
following your brand, you personally. I was on your podcast, I've
Yep.
worked with your team. I've been like really in the
Really.
hummingbirds world of nerding out, and it's something I genuinely admire. So thank you for sharing that
Of
behind
course.
the curtain look
Yeah.
of what really intrigued and what you're doing differently. So
Mhm.
when you were first starting, it sounds like you leveraged your marketing agency,
Yep.
your local network. But what did that necessarily look like creating this model in new cities, right? Because
Mhm.
I know right now you're more focused in the Midwest and adding
Yep.
on more cities. What does that look like for scaling?
Yeah. Yeah. That's always everyone's like biggest curiosity, I think. Like, how do you open up a new city and like what does that look like? How time consuming?
Right,
That was the biggest thing I wanted to set out and figure out before we raised money. I opened Omaha and Milwaukee with one employee at the time. She was a contractor at that point. And so I was like, I need to prove that people will sign up for this platform, even though like no brands are on it at this point. I just need to prove that this is like bigger than like the Emily show in Des Moines, Iowa, right? Because
right,
I can pull together a group and like I have that. That's what I do. It's what I'm good at. But can I do it with a group of strangers I've never met? And that was like, if I can do that from Des Moines, Iowa via Instagram DMs, then like this thing is totally, totally doable. So we typically, when we open a new city, we kind of had this thesis that mid-sized cities were going to be like our first go-to-market because there's so much success in Omaha, Des Moines, and Milwaukee, and they all kind of resemble like a similar population. And so not exactly, but there's enough, it's not New York City, right? Like Milwaukee is
right,
not New York City. So we're kind of looking at that kind of composition of a city. Um, so that was kind of the first how we decided to open new cities, but we'll go into a new market and say, hey, we want to get 100 to 200 people. We send DMs and we're like, hey, do you want to try cool brands in your own backyard and share on social media? And the people we target are the ones who are already telling, like sharing what the cool cocktail bars are, like what brands they're picking up at Costco or Whole Foods, right? Like they're sharing their life. Like that's just who they
right,
are. And so they love it. They're like, I get to like get paid to do this. I get perks. Like I would love this. And so that part's been really easy. So then it's basically like drumming up the brand side of the house, right? Because we have
right.
to populate with our creators before we can sell anything. So we make a pretty concerted effort within, I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks to get hundreds of people signed up in each city. And it's a decent undertaking, but because our brand has really grown over the last couple of years, there's a lot more trust and our wait list has grown so much too. So people are like, no, we want you to open in this city. And so there's some demand from the hummingbird side of the house too, which has been so nice.
That's great. And also, I'm sure it gives you confidence going into those markets that what you're then selling to brands you can deliver on because you have a
Totally.
great roster of creators that you can work with.
You got it. Yep.
So, from the brand side, if you could explain
Mhm.
the advantage or the experience of using the platform and where this integrates into their marketing strategy, I find it really interesting. And when I met with your team and I got to understand more behind the scenes, I had a client right off the top of my head. I'm like, ooh, this is literally what we've been looking for. And I've been looking at it so many different ways, and Hummingbirds, the platform and what the campaign is such a great fit. But for someone who isn't familiar yet, could you walk us through that from the brand's perspective?
Yeah, I'll kind of back up and just share like we build communities of like hyper local creators and social media enthusiasts. Like they're very much like a millennial woman or millennial mom. I would say 50% are parents, but majority are identify as women. And that's the kind of the base we have today. We're growing in the Gen Z population, but we really have like that's kind of been the community. So we have 20 cities with 10,000 creators across all of them. And really truly these are your people who are just love to create reels because it's enjoyable. And I think really what brands have been looking for and craving is more of that authentic user generated content where you're working with
Right,
someone who has like a couple thousand followers that really do trust them. And so that's like our secret sauce. That's like we're focused just on that slice of Instagram users and that persona. And so brands that are excited to tap into that type of person are really looking for a few things. They're looking for brand awareness at the localist of levels. So I will tell you the brands that open up in new retail locations and need to drive velocity quickly to, prove viability in that retail location are
Right.
like, hey, how do we turn on a campaign as quickly as possible? Because we got to get inventory, we got to get products moving off the shelves and like getting people to love your product, right? There's no other ad channel that can become a customer, but creators can become your customer, right? And you're throwing all this product at them that hopefully a majority of them end up loving and buying again. And so I think that part has been really compelling, but it's the user generated content has really blown up in terms of what people are interested in just because of just the always on nature of social media and having a mix of content that brands can repurpose and reshare. Um, and so, yeah, I would say it's the sales velocity, brand awareness, and UGC that brands get really excited about from the Hummingbirds perspective. Um, and really it's the local element. Like we put a stake in the ground that was like, we're going to drive geographic behavior. Every other influencer platform focuses on affiliates and online behavior. And that's perfect if you are an online brand that uses affiliates. But like a lot of brands need to drive offline local behavior. And so, how do you find the people who can actually do that? So, when a brand comes to us, they essentially get to purchase a package of credits, and those credits equate to a creator. So, say you get 50 credits, you get to work with 50 creators who will create 50 posts essentially on Instagram. You get an Instagram story and like an Instagram post. So, technically, two posts if we want to be technical about it. And so, they get to use those throughout the year. They get to kind of create a lot of different campaigns, as many as it makes sense for their brand. Some of our brands have upwards of 1,000+ credits because they're multi-location. They have, so many seasonal activations. And so it really depends on the size of your brand, your budget, what you're trying to do in the world. But yeah, that's kind of the brand side of the house. And of course, you can work with our team as well to help set up the campaigns. I think a lot of people are still so new to the influencer space that like getting support on like how do you work with like the nano local people versus more of your professional micro macro influencers. I mean, they're just different people.
Yes, and something that I said before we hit record is how great your team has been. I've been attending all of my clients' meetings with your team
Cool.
as they create the campaign and answer questions. Also, myself, I have been a creator myself, micro influencer, so to
Yep.
speak. And as a marketer, brand strategist, I had questions too, because I was like, okay, I love this idea, but what does it actually look like? And the way that your team walked myself and my client through the process, I was just really impressed.
Yay.
You make it feel really tangible. And again, it's a really interesting slice of the pie to help drive that retail experience, getting literal humans in a store to move product off the shelf and then have that UGC. So
Totally.
it was like, check,
Yeah.
check, check. That's literally what we were
Yeah.
looking for. And I'm like, how are we going to do this? And then
Yeah.
again, it was like stars aligned. I'm like, okay,
I love that.
this
I love it so
platform
much.
can literally do all three. So thank you so much. You are
You're
making
so
my life
welcome.
so much better. Something that I find really interesting is I know that you just raised, you're in this chapter, you're in your growth era
Oh, there.
and
Mhm.
adding on new cities. What is the vision that you have for hummingbirds?
I really look at people are the best distribution channel. Like we have figured out, the affiliate world and influencers. I like there's so many ways that we can tap into people's voices to drive the economy. So I think we're
Right.
only just getting started. When I think about hummingbirds, like today, our brands get content that's posted on Instagram. We do a little bit of TikTok, but I envision that being more fully baked in the next year. But if I have an opportunity to share a vision, I sure will. But I'm like, imagine LTK, but at like a local level, right? Where you can
Hmm.
have your own little shop and you're like, this is where, like, if I'm going to this specific Whole Foods in my city, these are the must-have things I pick up. And you're putting those CPG brands like in your profile that you love. And like you're building some of that behavior. So someone's like, oh, I want to pick up an Olipop at Whole Foods. They open it up and maybe they redeem a coupon. Maybe they like, get a scan a receipt and it proves that like because I created my own kind of storefront of the things I'm buying at specific shops. It drives retail velocity. So I think Instagram's a place for us to start, but I think there's so many other cool ways that we can get people um, moving behavior. CPG is where we really play, but I have such a heart for small businesses and organizations in our city. Like I think about even like performing arts organizations, right? Like we work with a handful of those too that are like, hey, we really need to get butts in seats and we really need
Right.
the younger generation of consumers. I'm like, if I had a way to share a link that someone could buy and they see, oh my gosh, when Emily shares about the Moulin Rouge coming, like it actually drives velocity for us. But that doesn't exist today. And it's just mind blowing to me that, big brands have the level of sophistication, but some of these emerging CPG brands and these smaller businesses don't have the tools, which is setting them back because we're in the creator economy. So I want to make the
Right.
creator economy more accessible to all types of different brands. And we're taking a crack at the emerging CPG brands, and that's been really, really fun. But I want to do more for sure.
I like how you put that into context of like we are in the creator economy, though it's been a really steep battle or a
Yeah.
steep hill to climb if you are just starting out, especially as an emerging brand, emerging CPG brand.
Yes.
So that's also something I found really interesting of like this makes it more applicable and you could get started sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any other piece of advice you would share with an emerging brand founder? Maybe they're just starting off in their journey. Either they're building a brand, a product, a platform. I would love to hear your insight.
I mean, besides working with you, you're delightful and smart.
Well,
So,
thank
like,
you.
they should consider that for sure. Like every interaction our team has had with you has been so positive. So it's so nice to know people in the industry who like really are looking out for emerging brands and brands who are really just starting to figure this out. So
That's really
I
kind.
can
Thank
say,
you.
yeah, of course. I can say from my perspective of just like being on the tech side of things, like and early days running this out of my agency, like and really truly bootstrapping this to figure it out. Like there I've gotten a healthy amount of criticism to be like, well, why didn't you raise money sooner and like really scale this? I was like, I knew when it was the right time. I knew that the world was not ready for nano local influencers until like 2021 or two. The world would not
Right.
be ready and this would have failed epically. And so I think a lot of it's like trusting your instincts and like staying the course. I mean, the amount of no's. I mean, raising capital, hundreds upon hundreds of calls to get like 4 term sheets. You know what I mean? Like this is just like you gotta have thick skin. And sometimes it's just developed along the way. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's just like trusting yourself, trusting what you're building, and like keep on keeping on. Keep shooting your shot, keep asking for what you want, and like hopefully at some point more of those doors open.
And what it also sounds like is that consistency of showing up for what you believe in and keep trying even when you have lots of no's, like, that's part of the process,
Yeah,
and
just
just
plan on
knowing
it.
that.
Hmm.
Yes, thank you. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I'm like, I think the statistics like 96% of meetings you have raising capital will be a no. So it's like, okay, plan
Right.
for that. Like versus being like, oh, it just keeps being a no, it keeps being a no. I'm like we just let the math equations be the math equations. We're like, okay, if we have 100 VC firms we talk to and 4 give us a term sheet, that's like the correct math. And that is like exactly what happened. So it takes a lot of persistence though to get that 100 calls. So ask for help where you need. Not everyone's like I'm from Iowa. I'm not connected to the VC world. I don't live in the Bay Area. I asked for help wherever I could get it. And like people get excited about the story, get people excited about what you're building, and they'll make the introductions, but be sure to ask for them. Follow up, like again, persistency pays off.
I'm all about that follow-up. I literally bug my clients all the time, like, "Follow up again.
Follow up
Just
again.
just follow up.
Just
It's
follow up.
okay.
Is
Follow up."
persistency? I said persistency, and I'm like, that's not a word, is it? But it should be. It's like
It should
consistent.
be.
I was like, it came out of my mouth. I'm like, not real, but it might become a word today. We'll add it to the dictionary.
I I'm here for it, and it makes sense to me. Um, The last thing I know that I have to let you go, I could talk to you
Yes.
forever, but, what is the best way to connect with
Yeah.
hummingbirds to see if this is a fit for a brand?
Yeah. I mean,
Or
we
a
love
creator too, on both
totally. Sure,
sides.
sure, sure. Yeah. So as a brand, like we have more of a get to know the sales team. Like they'll guide you through the platform, kind of show you how it works, see if it's a good fit based on the cities we're in, some of the goals you have. Like it's a really collaborative conversation. And then if it's a good fit, we get you signed up, enrolled, all of that. But when it comes to the creator side, it's very different. It's just like sign up, select your city, and then once you integrate with Instagram, you can start to view the campaigns and express interest. And essentially, once you get selected, right, you can express interest in as many campaigns. We're always like, you're not going to get selected for 100% of them. So shoot your shot as however many feel authentic to you that you would want to talk about. And then you typically get selected, I would say 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3 times. So it's super
Awesome.
fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Emily. I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast. Thank you everyone for listening and definitely check out Hummingbirds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.